all of you to our Satsang today. Today's topic is deeds versus intentions, and that may tell you a lot because deeds are fulfilled or completed intentions, and people have many intentions but never get to the completion, the fulfillment of those intentions. And for the devotee, it's essential to be able to go all the way to success and finding God, to be able to affirm and confirm, and finally to arrive at the point when you are saying, I am walking into the light, I'm living my life for God, I'm walking toward freedom, I'm walking toward fulfillment, I'm walking toward expansion. And this is why we have vows. We take our Kriya vow, Kriya initiation vow, we take discipleship vows, we take pilgrim's vow, Nayaswami vow, various vows we take. We have blessings, we come for blessings here, for purification, we come to satsang, we come to classes, we come to retreats. It's all a confirmation and affirmation that I am living my life in the light. I'm moving towards God in every step of the way in this lifetime. And Master had a wonderful thing. He said, everyone is on a spiritual path. Some are walking, some are running, some are on the sidelines, and some are running backwards. But everybody is trying to make it in one way or another. And Swamiji had a beautiful, one of his brother monks told him a beautiful dream that he had of people who were all running toward entering the light, all devotees. And he saw many of the brother monks running towards that light. And Swamiji said, well, did people fall? And he said, yes, everyone fell. But the difference was those who got up and kept going or those who just stayed there. And this is the thing for the devotee, to continue. Master said, God will never let you down if you keep trying. And so with this topic of deeds, we want to go forward on our path with everything that we have. And Master said that a beautiful thing, he quoted from the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said, out of 1,000, one seeks me, one devotee. And out of the 1,000 that seek me, perhaps one knows me. And then Yoganandaji said something so beautiful. He said, but our percentages are better. And why would they be better? He said millions will find God through these teachings and through the Bhagavad Gita, through the teachings there. He said, I know, I have seen them. And why would we say our percentages are better? Well, look at all the things that we have. With the teachings, with the books, with the music, with satsangs, with retreat places, with all the different practices that we have, with all the opportunities to have satsang and be together. All of these things help us to move upward toward the light. I remember when I was living in Ananda, San Francisco house, and we were all young and just starting out in our 20s, and we would go to the sadhana every morning, and I would go and help people to get out of bed because I was always easy for me to rise, but some people would, sleep in and, and they would really want to come. So we would go down the halls chanting, not with the harmonium, but just, a cappella with cymbals and waking people up. And we used to sing this song of Swami Sri Teswarji at different times. The words are, O my saint, wake yet wake. You did not meditate, you did not concentrate. You passed your time in idle words. Death will be at thy door. And we go to people's door, death will be at thy door. You won't have time anymore. Wake, wake. Most people would get up, but I remember, we have this part that wants to rise and this other part that just leave me alone. I just don't feel like being bothered. I remember one time someone threw a shoe at the door and it just said, leave me alone. Afterwards, of course, they felt sad about it. But we have these parts of us. One wants to find God. One wants to put out the energy, wants to rise, and the other's just too much trouble. And but we have it within us to go forward. And so we wonder, how is it possible to be able to have this feeling of seeking God, of going forward with faith? And I was thinking of the various things that Master talked about. And one was, he talked about the teachings and how to utilize the teachings. And when Master spoke to people, when he was with his audiences, he didn't just talk. He gave people things to do. He had people up energizing, he had people chanting, he did affirmations like we did. He was chanting for an hour and a half with people, a particular chant. He had people doing things. He showed them, these are the tools. And if you use these tools, he taught meditation techniques. He did healing practices. We have a healing class here today at 11:30 after the satsang. But the key was, he didn't just speak. He had people doing things, and he showed them, by doing this, you can change yourself. By meditating, by chanting, by doing the meditation techniques, by coming to satsang, by seva, you'll be able to change your consciousness. He said you won't be able to recognize yourself in a few years by just doing these things. And so he first emphasized, practice the techniques. And we have classes here on the various techniques, meditation and all. You're certainly welcome to join, but that was his emphasis, practice the techniques. And secondly, he spoke a lot about will and willpower, to utilize your will. And he said, it's your own but God-given will. And the greater the will, the greater the flow of the energy, the greater the inspiration, the greater the magnetism. And he was a man of great willpower. I remember a story, he was Master, several, but anyway, I'll share these couple with you. Master was to go out on a lecture tour, a campaign. He was campaigning, he would go and lecture. And this one story, he told his secretary that he was going, and his secretary said, well, you can't go anywhere, you only have $200 in the bank. And Master said, so what? He said, I'm going. And he had full faith, harnessed his will with God's will. And he was in San Francisco, and he was walking there in the streets, and someone came up to him and said, he probably maybe had on a robe or maybe had on a suit, but he certainly looked Indian. He had long hair, and so a man came up to him, and he said, I want to contribute to what you're doing, to your work. And Master said, you don't even know who I am? He said, yes, I do, from your eyes. And he wrote a check out for $27,000 on the spot and gave it to him for his work. Now, he had in his mind what he wanted to do, and he never let that thought go. And I hear so many times here people saying, I say kind of jokingly, because I hear so many excuses about why I can't do this. And I say to people, I'm writing a new book, the book of excuses, because there's so many. And people who, I'm definitely going to do this, I'll definitely be there, and people just don't follow through. But Yoganandaji's teachings were to stick. I remember Swamiji said to someone, stick by your word. What you say you're going to do, put your full energy, put your willpower behind it, and manifest it. And so Yoganandaji, he was driving at some point, and he saw the Mount Washington estates where he ended up founding his work. And he was going through the gates there, and the people with him said, oh, don't go in there, no, it's too expensive. And he said, no, let's go. And he went in, he looked around the place, and he said, this is our home. And people thought, how can he say that? It's going to cost so much money, and he didn't care. He was bold enough to bring the students there and say, this is our new ashram. And he hadn't bought it or anything, but he was so clear in his mind, and he had such focus and such will and such attunement to God that he knew, plus he had a vision of that place before he even got to America. And so Master, I think it cost $60,000 or some amount, and that was back in the 20s. And some lady said, oh God, you'll never be able to get that. That's going to take 20 years to raise that kind of money. And he said, 20 years for those who think 20 years. 3 years for those who think 3 years. And 3 months for those who think 3 months. And he had 3 months. And it's such a beautiful story. You can read it in the Path. He said, I was battling with Divine Mother, and I was asking her, how do you plan to give me that money? And he called everybody he knew. He worked at it, and in 3 months, well, he got it for less as well. But he was able to purchase a place that became their ashram in Mount Washington from the high energy and the willpower that he had. And also, we have to begin to release attachments, to be able to move forward, to be able to let go of things that are holding us back from our success, from arriving at the things that we want to become and the things we want to have, and particularly for the devotee, for finding God. I remember an incident that happened not so many years back, where someone had gone to Brigu Reader, or Gustia, and the person had told this person that they would be liberated in this life. Now, that's quite a bit for anybody to tell anybody anyway, but they had told them this, it was their last life, they would achieve moksha, and then I started hearing this from different people, when they went and the guy told them, and they told them, and I thought, this is very strange. So Swami Kriyanandaji got word of that, and he settled it, which I was so grateful before he left this earth. I remember one day he came to breakfast, and he said, and this person and that person said that the Brigu reader said they were going to be free in this life. He said, impossible! He said, it's impossible, that you can't have desires and attachments, likes, dislikes, ego, everything revolving around the ego, and you're going to find God in this life. He said, you have to work at it. And he was saying to us, start letting go of your attachments, of your desires, of the things you like. Let go of the ego that I'm this and I'm that. And I remember one of my dear friends, when she passed away, Swamiji said to her, he said, it's your time to go. Start letting go of your attachments. And, right now, we should all start letting go of the things that we hold so dear and the things that we have to have and the various things. Because to be able to go walk into the light of God, you can't go with anything. I remember I was telling this story last night in Noida that when I moved into Ananda in San Francisco, I had all my old photos from high school and from college and whatever, and I just lit a fire in the fireplace and I just burned them all. And I said, it's not who I am. It's not who I want to be. That time is over. We have to begin to release the past and the memories and let go. And finally, we need to also remember that if we're sincere and if we're moving forward with the help of the masters, we have 5 avatars guiding our lives, we have all the various practices. If we're moving forward with their help and their blessing, they'll never let us down. And I heard a beautiful story of Swamiji told of Shivananda, a disciple of Shivananda. And it was a woman disciple, and her guru, told her to wake up every day at 4 o'clock and meditate. And she said, okay, fine. So in a way, she took, she was sincere about it. And she did it for some time. She got up, and interestingly enough, she would hear just before 4 o'clock these steps coming to her door. and like the wooden sandals that you know of here in India. She'd hear the steps coming up to her door, and then she would hear a knock at the door. And, then nobody was ever there. But she continued, and every day she'd hear it, and she was up. And then she got kind of tired, and she stopped getting up. She'd hear the steps, she'd hear the knock, but then she didn't get up. And then that went on for some time, and then the steps stopped, and the knocking stopped. Because she just she didn't try anymore. And I remember Swamiji said there was a man at the ashram who Master said, that he said, if you keep trying, you can break through this karma. But if you stop trying, he said, it could take you 200 more lifetimes to get back to this point that you're at now in your spiritual growth. And as Swamiji said, Mount Washington was like a hotel where they lived. People checked in and people checked out. They just couldn't take the discipline. And this man ended up leaving. And when he came back, Master cried because he said, why did you go? I told you what would happen. And of course he had been through many hurtful and painful experiences of life. Master said, why did you go? And he said, Guruji said, if you can do 1/100th of what I've given, you can break through the doors of God. 1/100th. And another person who was there living in Mount Washington, Guruji said, if she had stayed 24 more hours, she would have been freed of that karma forever. And we think, oh, I'll never get out of this, and this is so painful, this is this suffering, I can't go. He said 24 more hours. And you see the beautiful story of Jnanamata, how she just kept going no matter what. And no matter how ill she was, no matter what was going on in her life, she kept serving, she kept meditating, she would energize from her chair, even from a wheelchair. She would do the energization. Master would call for her to come and do some seva. And I remember once Swamiji told us that someone called, Master called, and someone picked up the phone, and they said, oh, well, she's not available. And then sister, when Master called her sister, she said, well, who was that? And they said, oh, that was Master. And she said, well, what happened? Well, he wanted you to do something. And she said, listen, when he calls, tell me. Say yes, and make it snappy. Because she didn't care what she was going through. She wanted to always have that vow in front of her that she came for God, she was going to God. And then she, at the end of her life, she was fully liberated. Now, she did receive moksha. And at her time of her passing, Master had the disciples feel her feet, which were like ice. And he said, now you come feel the top of her head. And it was like a heater. It was so hot. And he said, this means that she's finished. She went out, her soul left to the top of the head, never to have to come back again, just fully liberated, fully enlightened. And this is so beautiful. And where else could we go? I think we should look at this as a rare birth. We have so much, so many things to help us. And it reminded me of the disciples of Jesus when they felt his teachings had gotten a little difficult. And so it says in the Bible, from that point onward, many walked with him no more. They went away. And then Jesus turns to his close disciples and he says, will you leave me as well? And there'll be times along the path when you feel, this isn't what I thought it would be, or I don't want to do this. And he says, will you leave me too? And their answer was so beautiful. It's the answer of the devotee. They said, to whom shall we go? Who do you go to? But your guru, the guru's teachings, to the path that he's laid out. And with that, if we do it with full energy, with focus, with devotion, with attunement to God, then we too will be one of those people running in to merge with the light that devotee saw, and we will all merge with that light of God. God bless you.